Welcome back to the channel. This is Wayne's World RC. Today I'm gonna do a A-arm swap for RPM. Here's a part. Here's a part number. We're going to do a swap from the stock A-arm to RPM A-arms, front and rear. The reason why we're doing this is because I hear there's a lot of failure that occurs on the stock ones because they're thin gauge versus the RPM that are thick gauge. And recently I've just picked up the laser knot for fun, see how it is, as opposed to the Mojave or the Rhino. So let's skip to it and get to it. The tools today that I need so far will be your stock Arrma wheel hub remover, 2mm MIP, I suggest, because I haven't stripped nuts since I got them, or bolts, and a 2.5 MIP. Alrighty, let's see how we're gonna do it. Skip right to it. First, you want to remove the tires. So this build that we're gonna do today, I have never done before. It's gonna be the first time for me. So since things aren't always perfect, we're gonna, and not everybody has done it all the time. We're gonna do this together and see how we do. First, we take off the tire. We'll set it aside for later. See that on this one, the hub comes off easier. Now we'll lift the body just to get it out of the way. In my suggestion, I try not to take off more parts than we need. So what I'm going to try to do is work from the bottom and pull the parts aside to see where we go. First, we'll start by removing the shock. Because that's pretty much the first thing you can easily get to. Just by taking the bottom bolt out. Now we'll set the screw aside. The best practice I've learned to do is actually take your new arm and put your bolts almost directly where you took them out. That way when you go to put it together, it seems a lot easier than if you actually took and just set screws aside and you can't find them. So my next thought to do is take off the actual tie rods, because it's not that hard. And what I suggest is actually using the stock parts, the goodie bag that comes in with most Arrma, most low-sleeve products. In fact, we'll take off front A-arm. The front tie rod, sorry. And when you do this, what I suggest is each time you take your tie rod out or anything, to actually take and put the bolt in where you took it out. Or, if you can, set it aside if you're good and you'll know where it goes. But I like to put it right back where it is. And I like to move it aside. For my next, since I can get into this, what I think I'm going to do is remove the front bumper. The front bumper I replaced, it was the stock plastic, but I decided to go with Integy. It wasn't that expensive, but it is pretty good. So we'll remove these 6 screws. This way we can see where it goes. I like to do things by hand. You can use a drill, but I don't want to weld my bolt or strip my plastic. So I think I like to do it this way. To each his own in this situation. Okay, now we'll set the front cushion, bumper support aside, and try to put the screws right in the same exact spots that they would go when you put them back. Now that gets us to a good part, which is your actual front. Now that we move tie rod out of the way, now we can see we have the sway bar. Now, to me, it might be easier just to try to take and remove. See if there's a way I can remove get into and move the actual knuckle hub carrier. So I'm going to try to take, instead of moving that, maybe the easier way would have been not to remove the tie rod, but to just remove the hub carrier. So I'm going to remove the front. And then we'll remove the back bolt, like that. Now we remove the hub carrier, and we'll set it aside in the shaft, drive shaft. That'll be one side. Easier thing to do now is remove the actual sway bar. See if this is okay, so that is a 2. If we can get into it. Doesn't look like we can get into it. So what we'll have to do now is probably remove the bumper. Because if we can remove the bumper, then we'll be able to yes, we'll probably have to remove the bumper. Let's see. I'm not sure if this is that way we can get into the hinge pins and stuff like that. remove the front bumper piece. What you want to do is put the bolts where they're going to go back in place, or close to where they're going to go back in place. Now, maybe it'll be easier to take the front supports or hinge pin bolts out of the bracket. That way we can remove the bar easier. So let's remove the hinge pin support. Remember, it's not a race to see how fast you get done, because you want to make sure you put it together right. We'll take the support. Again, we'll set it aside. But what we'll do is we'll put the screws that go with it next to it. Now we'll take off the front. And the easy way to do that is gently go even left to right. What that does is it helps release your front A-arm. Now we can easily take the pin out, remove the pin, and since that sway bar we couldn't get to, now we can get to the actual screw to take the sway bar out by holding the A-arm, and we'll release the screw that holds the sway bar on, which is a lot easier than taking the actual sway bar apart. So we'll release that screw, pull out the link, and there's the A-arm. As you see, there's two pins, bushings. So what we'll do is we'll set them aside. Not sure if we'll use them again. But these screws that came with the stock arm, I'm sure we'll be using this again. So now we want to just go in reverse. As you see, the holes line up. First you want to do is put your screw through. And being that it's new plastic, it might not go in as easy. So what you want to do is you want to start the screw, get it almost through where you can see it. I suggest, like I'm doing, putting the actual screw and the sway bar together first, because it's harder to get to after. Then you want to push it in place. Line it up as best as you can. Then you want to screw the support screw through. Now you have that screw set in place. Now you want to try to take and put your pin to where it belongs. So what I'd like to do is grab my hinge pin and put it in. That way it helps me keep things aligned to where they gotta be. Now that's aligned. These actual little bushing, they come with the stock part. You want to make sure you use them because, as you can see, it will help hold the hub in place. Put them in. Now you can line your hub back up. Just as you see, this will go through here, and then you gotta push it in place. Make sure that you're keeping your CV shaft where it belongs. We'll put our hub carrier in. And now it's best to put one screw in, start it. Put your other screw in, which is on the other side. Start it. Now quickly, not quickly, but tighten them down. Front. Now the rear. Okay, now that that's in place, make sure your CV shaft is in place, as you can see. Now put your pin. There's the bracket in the back to make sure the pin is in. Now, what I like to do to hold it from falling out is put my top tie rod back in to the knuckle, or the carrier, whatever you want to call it. Once it's through, now you want to take your nut that you have and start that nylon screw. What I like to use sometimes if I can't hold on to it is actually these. Helps you from dropping stuff so quickly. Now you can hold on to that. Get your two. And start threading it on. Once you start threading it, then you can get in your stock, your goodie bag, and get in your tool. that you use for most everything and tighten it back down. Now since you have your hand pinned out, it's easy to, if your CV shaft keeps falling out, it's easier now to put back in. We just want to make sure that this is in. So what I like to do is like give it a tap with something softly to make sure it's in place. Now what I'll do is I'll put my shock, and there's 3 holes. It's up to you, but I always like to use the center until I actually bash to see, you know, what the rebound is and everything on my spring rates. See if I have to change the weight of the oil in the shock, depending on, all that depends on truly what you're doing, whether you're bashing, whether you're jumping, whether you're, you know, just going for a leisure ride over the normal train. It all depends on what you're doing. Me, I like to send it. That's my favorite part of RC, is sending it. But then along comes sending is also fixing. So it looks so far that really it's not that hard. And if you've done, you know, any of your Arma Creightons, any of your Outcast, Notorious, they're not that much different replacing the arm. So what I'll show you now is there is a difference. If you can see, there's a lot, we'll put it the right way first. You can see there's a lot more beef around what parts actually crack when they hit front, nose and stuff. And you can see like the thickness. These are a little more flexible. I like RPM. They're pretty good. So now that we got this side done, which is pretty cool, now we're gonna work on another side. So the same way we did one side, we're gonna do the other side, which is pretty cool. It's easy. It's not hard. But I think what we'll do now is we'll take off the tire on the other side, and what we'll do is we'll go right to it. Let's get to the other side. Take the tire off, side to side, and leave the nut in the actual hole. So let's do it again. Let's take it apart. And now we know you might not have to take the top tie rod or nothing off, since we learned from trial and error. We'll just take the front hub off. And another little thing is the front, the A-arms, they come from RPM, are asymmetrical, which means you won't put the one left or right in the wrong side.